Hello, Spray School. Mittens here. So I'm about to cut out this Discord stencil for the contest, and I thought I would just share a few tips and tricks for cutting out stencils to make your life a little easier. So, first of all, of course, you should work in an area with good light, either by a window or a nice desk lamp, whatever works for you. And it's nice to have the surrounding work area kind of clean and free of clutter, because often you're moving the stencil around as you cut. Also, I highly recommend that you change your blades often, because so I work with these number 11 X-Actos, which is pretty common for stencil work, and they're very good, but that tiny little tip breaks off very easily, and if that happens, I just change the blade. They're not that expensive, and it just makes the cutting out a whole lot easier if you do that. So before I cut out a stencil like this, I just kind of look at it and decide on a general strategy on how I'm going to do it. And generally the approach that you want to take is you want to cut out in such a way that you don't weaken the stencil sort of sooner than you have to, because it makes the rest of the cutting out harder. So one thing that I certainly wouldn't do is cut out this big black area here first, because then this entire half of the stencil would be disconnected from this one, and you would have much less support for cutting out all these details here. So sort of in a similar way, I like to work from the inside out. So I'm probably going to start with all these little feather lines in here, and then kind of work my way out. And I would do these dark areas last, because as soon as I cut those out, the whole stencil is going to become very weak. And let's see, it's kind of going to be the same with these tail scales, that I would certainly cut those out before cutting out these two big swooping lines for the tail itself, because then this whole area is going to be moving up and down and sideways as I try to cut out those details. I usually like to cut towards myself, so kind of like if I were to cut out here, I would be cutting towards myself. It's very difficult. With these X-Acto knives, you cannot push away and cut. It just doesn't work that way. And for curves, it's often nicer, instead of to keep the stencil stationary and moving around the curve, it's often easier to keep the knife in one relative orientation, and then with the other hand kind of move the stencil past the knife almost. Let's see, what else? Let's see, if you have little islands like here, I would recommend to, again, kind of the idea of working from the inside out, I would cut out this middle one first, then these two, then I would probably cut out this line and the inside of this thin line, and then I would finally cut out the outside of this thin line, because it's just going in that order is kind of the strongest and the easiest. Let me see what else. I think that's about it. So if I think of anything else, I'll try to write it in the comments. And feel free to ask me any questions, or any of the mods, Spray School mods, if you need help cutting out your stencil. So thanks a lot.